Net zero, is it a rubbish target? As I complete my 70th circumnavigation of the star in our solar system, travelling on planet A, otherwise known as the Earth, I've got concerns for the future. It feels like we're heading to an extinction level event. And no, I'm not referring to a huge chunk of rock heading our way from outer space. I'm referring to the various governments on this planet swinging their dicks in the breeze saying, oh, look how good we are with our net zero targets by 2050. Firstly, I've got my doubts that many of them will not achieve their targets. Many have not set the steps necessary to achieve it, because when you set a goal, you've got little steps along the way to make sure that you're on track. And secondly, until they hit this mystical net zero, they're still spewing out carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So when I was born in 1953, the CO2 levels were at 312.6 parts per million. Today, that level is now 416.43 parts per million, which is an increase of 103.83 parts per million, or over 33%. By comparison, for the 70 years before I was born, the increase was 20.6 parts per million. Fossil fuel companies are to blame here. Back in the late 70s, Exxon scientists discovered that the burning of dino juice was putting too much carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Their calculations were in fact highly accurate. They predicted that the average temperatures would rise by 1.5 degrees centigrade by 2050 if nothing was done. Already now the temperatures are 1.2 degrees centigrade up and will hit 1.5 by 2050, just as they predicted. And the amount of CO2 entering the atmosphere is going up exponentially. In 1960, CO2 was increasing at around 0.8 parts per million per year, and by 2010, 2.4 parts per million per year. So what did Exxon do with this information? Did they do the right thing for society? Ball dust. Of course they bloody didn't. They buried it. They spent billions creating FUD, or fear, uncertainty and doubt, around it, just so they could keep digging up and selling that shit at huge profits. That's the dino juice I'm talking about. And they're still doing it. They're still spending vast quantities of money finding new areas to suck this shit out of the ground. If governments had any balls, they could force these companies to put all this exploration money into building renewables, and we can solve the problem overnight. All that money the oil and gas industry is spending right now could build enough renewables to make the difference between the human race dying out and survival. Ice cores containing air bubbles and other paleoclimate evidence reveal that the levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere during the ice age cycles of the past millions of years never exceeded 300 parts per million. Prior to the Industrial Revolution in the mid-1700s, the atmospheric carbon dioxide levels were at or below 280 parts per million. So the proportion of heating caused by different greenhouse gases has shifted over time. In 1990, carbon dioxide accounted for 60% of the warming effect. But by 2021, it was responsible for 66%. And while the warming effect of methane has risen, its relative contribution to human-caused warming has dropped from 21% to 16%. And the impact of CFCs, or chlorofluorocarbons, has decreased from 12 to 7.6%, while that of the CFC substitutes, which is the hydrochlorofluorocarbons and hydrofluorocarbons, has risen from 1 to 3.2%. So overall, human-produced greenhouse gases have caused an increase of 1.1 watts per square metre of warming since 1990. And carbon dioxide is responsible for 80% of that increase, nitrous oxide for 8%, and methane for 6%. And the HCFCs and HFCs contributing about another 4%. And the warming influence from CFCs is going down. So what's the solution? We need governments to stop faffing around, but that isn't going to happen, as most, if not all, governments are inept and they've got a master's degree in faffing around. So if governments aren't going to do it, do we wait for private enterprise to do it for us? This is one of the more likely solutions at the moment. Here in Australia, we've got quite a few enterprises starting up to build or are looking at building up large-scale renewables. We've got the Fortescue Metals Group, which belongs to Twiggy Forrest, and Mike Cannon-Brookes Grok Ventures, that are looking at building the world's biggest solar project in the north of Australia. And even they're faffing around a little bit, arguing over what they're going to do exactly. But the outlook on that, I think, is going to be quite good. Parts of Australia are very windy, so it would be ideal for wind farms. Just north of Perth, a place called Geraldton. Very windy, and they built a wind farm there. Also, Australians are known as fringe dwellers, as the majority of the population lives all around the edges of this continent, and it's almost as large as the whole of North America. So with the population around the edge and the amount of solar energy reaching Australia, it would make ideal area for solar panels. Hence this big solar project in the north. Now, the amount of sunlight that hits the Earth at any one time is 173 petawatts of energy. And that exceeds all of the world's energy needs for the whole year and 7 years. So the world's population currently consumes 23.9 petawatts of power. So 173 petawatts, that's more than enough. Now a petawatt is 173 petawatts is 173 and 15 zeros following it. And unlike coal and gas, the solar energy is going to last for approximately the next 5 billion years, and it won't pollute our atmosphere with those nasty greenhouse gases. In Australia, fossil fuels account for 92% of the primary energy mix in 2020-2021, and renewables only 8%. That is getting a little bit better. The total energy consumption last year was 230 billion kilowatt hours. So the north of our country, the average solar energy falling on Australia is in the region of 21 to 24 megajoules per square metre. And further south, it's say Perth, which is where I am, it's about 18 megajoules per square metre. So this equates to between 5 and 7 kilowatts per square metre every day. Solar panels at best 20% efficient. So you could harvest up to a kilowatt for every square metre. So a solar farm, 1 acre in size, could produce over 350 megawatts of energy per year. If my maths is correct, 650,000 acres of solar farms could produce enough power for the whole year in Australia. It's obviously not the ideal solution, although Australia has over 44.6 million acres. So, seeing as we have so much empty land, sticking solar panels in the middle would make a lot of sense, and along with some wind and battery storage, the problems could be solved without resorting to oil and gas. Is this going to happen? Probably, yes. Is it going to happen soon enough? Almost certainly no, especially if we have to rely on governments to create the right conditions for it to happen. As an individual, you may think that you can't do too much to help, but you're wrong. Installing solar panels on your roof, installing battery systems at home, driving an electric car, all these things, whilst they're only small changes in the big picture, if enough people do it, it's amazing what a difference it can make. Even changing your eating habits can help. Eating less meat. Buying items that are produced locally so that they don't have huge transit factors involved, which creates carbon dioxide and emissions. That would be diminished. So, if only half the population in Australia reduced their daily CO2 emissions by just 1 gram per day, that's over 10 million grams a day, which equates to 5 million kilograms per year, just if half the people in Australia do 1 gram less. It's a small amount, but it can do a whole lot more. I'm sure there are a lot more suggestions that you could come up with, so please comment below. Thanks very much for watching. Please don't forget, can you click that like and subscribe button below, as it really does help the channel. And I will see you all very soon.